Let's podcast alongside Lauren Brownlow. I'm Joe Ovies inside Eford Studios in downtown Raleigh. It is just past 2:00. We are live on YouTube. Thanks to our friends at the Butcher's Market. Check them out online at thebutchersmarkets.com. Before I tell you about my new obsession at the Butcher's Market, Brownlow,
yes.
How are you?
I am doing pretty well.
Are you tired from watching the Taylor Swift New Heights interview all night?
I didn't.
I know.
Watch it.
You dabbled in the Swift for a bit, didn't you?
It's not that. Okay, I do. I have like 3 of her albums.
Sure, I do too.
I like her stuff. I just don't. It's like it feels like sometimes with her, and I'm sure this isn't actually the case, but it feels like sometimes with her, it's like you're either all in or you're all out, and it's like I don't really consume things that way.
I think there's a happy medium. I think I would probably qualify for like the happy medium. That I'm interested in what she's doing. I'll check out the new album.
Yeah. I've really liked some of her albums. I haven't liked some as much. Like that's kind of just where I fit in the Taylor Swift ecosystem. But I don't have to like follow her every move. Like you know what I mean?
You're not going back and watching clips of the Eras tour to see how she was dropping hints about this album all along? Or the fact when you go back to the...
See, to me, that's like, if I'm going to do that kind of...
video for Hi, It's Me, I'm the Problem, It's Me. She was wearing an orange showgirl dress, so therefore it shows off that she was thinking about this the entire time. Therefore, she is a mastermind. See, I almost feel like I'm more of a Swiftie than you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not begrudging that. I save that part of my brain for like TV shows and movies and stuff where I'm like, ooh, what does that symbolize? Or like, what is that foreshadowing or whatever? That's how I do it.
So big thanks to the Butcher's Market for sponsoring OG Live. Go to the Butcher's Market, various locations across the triangle. I'm pretty sure that the Falls and Millbrook location still has some OG Light. I think they had it at Lake Boone, but that might be gone now. I do know that you can get the Gleazy at the Butcher's Market now. Brownlow's making a face. The Gleazy is a like double brisket dog. It's really good. And there's a Gleazy sauce that comes along with it. The kids loved it.
I'm still recovering from the fact that people call hot dogs glizzies.
Glizzies?
I can't get my brain around that.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up. I always thought the glizzy was a gun, but now it's the dog, and now guns are referred to as blickies. So I can't keep up. Anyway,
I got nothing.
There's a lot going on. It's funny you mentioned the TV shows before we get to the Panthers, and we're going to talk to Luke DeCock at the News and Observer about Tom Dundon buying the Portland Trailblazers of all things. Andrew Jones of Tar Heel 24/7 is going to join us as well to talk about a few things related to the Tar Heels. So I'm in that mode of like watching TV shows that I've been meaning to watch before football really gets back into the swing of things,
totally.
Right? And so I completed Hunting Wives on Netflix.
You're recommending, and others have like told me too. They're like, oh my God, this show is insane. And you were not wrong.
That show is so unhinged.
I'm not done yet, but I'm like,
and so terrible. And yet,
yes, but the terrible is part of it.
But I couldn't stop watching it.
It's part of the appeal.
And that's what I had to like reset my brain. No, I mean, the visuals are good too, but that's another story altogether.
It feels like it should be on like HBO late at night.
Ooh, well, I was like, all right, let's see what's going on here. But I started watching Alien Earth on the recommendation of our friend
soon,
Caroline Darney. Caroline Darney will be here with Big Screen Sports for the Rialto for our sports podcast festival next week. Go get your tickets today at therialto.com. So when Caroline was like singing the praises of the screener that she had seen of Alien Earth, so I started watching it, and immediately with the way they had set things up for like to look exactly like the original Alien movies, Alien and Aliens, I was like, all right, I'm in. And it's like weird enough that, and it's not just obsessed with the xenomorph, that it hooked me in the first 2 episodes. So Caroline was not wrong about Alien Earth.
I'm going to watch it because I really like Noah Hawley as well.
But it's funny, you're wearing an Andor shirt today. I have friends everywhere.
Love that show. It's one of my favorite shows. Screw the Emmys, by the way. Snubs all over the place. Ridiculous.
I did not have on my bingo card that there'd be 2 shows this year that deep mine 70s sci-fi and bring it back in a way. But of course, everything is a remix. Everything, that doesn't mean that everything, all the remixes are bad. Sometimes, like I said, with Alien Earth or Andor season 2 or the original season of Andor, that they call back to that stuff. If we're getting back into some 70s sci-fi, I am all in because that is what I grew up on. And I feel like we've gotten away from it
Well, kind of, although remember Battlestar Galactica in the 2000s was the thing. That's a great show. Honestly, there's really not a bad version that I can think of a 70s sci-fi remix.
Now, speaking of new seasons, the new season of Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud starts this weekend, Lauren.
The season of my discontent.
With the Houston Texans and the Carolina Panthers playing a preseason game. We're going to talk.
That's not going to count in the narrative.
No,
it's not. It's a preseason game.
So this is what I find interesting about narratives, and that was actually kind of the point of this conversation. We're going to talk to Jonathan Alexander about
this. When Bryce beat him, I'm doing that for QB wins. It didn't count. So why would a preseason game count? It's stupid.
I know. We're going to talk to Jonathan Alexander about that game and what he saw this week with the practices and whatnot on Monday. Jonathan used to work for the Charlotte Observer, covered the Panthers. Worlds collide now that he's in Houston covering the Texans. But I'm glad you brought it up because we're kind of in this weird point with Bryce Young that either we're going to talk about Bryce Young to dump on him, or we're just not going to talk about Bryce Young at all outside of your Carolina Panthers.
Don't talk about him, please.
So it's interesting because in the first year, there's two conversation points around Bryce Young that have magically disappeared as the comparison points, I don't want to say flamed out, but they've come back down to earth. The easiest one is Chicago. Chicago, they spent so much time dumping on the Panthers for winning the trade. And of course, at that time, to be fair, you can win the trade.
No matter what happens, unless Bryce Young becomes like Tom Brady, they won the trade handily.
I disagree though, because you can win a trade. What are you going to do with the assets? Well, and they've already reset. They've already reset in Chicago. Okay, and they already are over Caleb Williams.
That's like saying if someone vastly overcharges you and they waste the money that they get from bilking you, that somehow they that you still won. No, Lauren, you still gave them your money.
I still need to find a win in that.
There's no win in that trade. That trade is horrendous.
Fair.
The trade is
all right. Fine. And the other thing that happened in that first year was CJ Stroud.
Yeah.
Right, and he had a monstrous rookie season. But through a combination of a few things last year with Houston, wide receivers getting hurt, offensive line play being a problem in Houston, they were good because there's the reason why I think there's a similarity or at least a track with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young is that I still think you can have the conversation of what if things were swapped with Stroud on the Panthers, Bryce on the Texans.
I said that even since they first played against each other, Bryce's rookie year.
And it really focuses on the defense. Okay. The reason why Houston was able to make the playoffs in the first place with all the other issues that were going on was because they had a really great defense. Yeah. It's the one thing that the Panthers do not have or did not have and still don't have.
No,
because that is a rebuild project that's going to take another season of replenishing.
Yeah, people need to understand that. Like anybody I've ever heard say dark horse Panthers, I'm like, be quiet, because this defense isn't going to be at a place where it can, and they'd have to outscore everybody, and it's good. It's a tall order.
So honestly. So when you go back and you look at CJ Stroud's stretch, I think it's from week 10 on. I was going through the football almanac, and they break these things down week by week with their metrics, their DVOA. If you look from week 10 on, CJ Stroud was one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, people will make a bunch of reasons why wide receivers, this is now offensive line play. But the reason why I bring it up is because we no longer were doing the comparisons anymore. That conveniently went away when it wasn't easy just to point to see, well, he's balling out. We could have had that guy.
Right.
So meanwhile, Bryce Young has turned things around a little bit. Going back to last Friday, I know you and Dimitri talked about this on the Panthers podcast, that he quietly had a nice start to the preseason. Jalen Coker continues to be the story of the wide receiver group, to the point where I've seen people online talking about, if I had to make a choice, Xavier Legette is the one that's going to get cut over Jalen Coker.
I still can't go that far because of my personal attachment to him.
Yeah.
But I understand. Let's just put it that way. Every time I hear him talk, though, I just get so happy. The way his accent is, I just love him so much as a person. As a player, we're not there yet. We're working on it.
Okay.
But as a person, he's wonderful. So I'm not quite there yet, but I don't know that it would come down to those two anyways.
No, I don't think it would come down to those two.
I think they would keep 6. I don't understand why that's crazy to people. Why would they even ask if Coker was going to stay on the roster? That was insane to me. I was like, no, I think he's okay.
I think they're looking at numbers. I think they're looking at how he got to be on the roster in the first place, who they've brought in, that sort of stuff. There's a lot riding on. I think the big thing is, I think what's going on here is that Xavier Legette, I think we're finding out a little bit more of how last season really went for him and whether or not he got the message of doubling down and committing to the position. And that Coker, it's not an either or proposition. It's more along the lines of reminding Legette, hey man, we invested in you with this draft.
And this guy's undrafted. Like he comes in hungry and he's catching everything thrown his way. Is this amazing catch rate? And you turned into Mr. Dropsies. Like we can't have that. We can't have Mr. Dropsies. And I have trauma as a Panthers fan from seeing plenty of Mr. Dropsies over the years from guys that were drafted that come in with all this hype. And all of a sudden you're like, why did you forget how to catch a football? Why? So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous, but it is what it is.
So I think what we're going to see with the Panthers this weekend is something that I also asked for last year, and we're actually getting it. Mm-hmm. More play from the starters.
Thank God. I just was like, thank you, God, because, we saw how that went last year when Bryce Young didn't get preseason.
Well, the funny
reps.
thing is, it's a tactic that goes beyond Dave Canales as the head coach. I was always convinced that the preseason for previous Panthers coaches, you go back to like Matt Rule and with Frank Reich, and obviously last year with Dave Canales.
I forget, but go on.
Fair enough. I think specifically to Bryce Young, I think they were trying to hide what they were seeing with Bryce Young, not in a positive way.
Okay,
not in a positive way.
I could. That would make some sense, I suppose.
So I think now,
or not give him any more reason to feel bad about whatever was going on.
I'll float this to you. Last year, I was actually talking about this with Kyle Bailey and Mike Solarte while we were in Charlotte for ACC kickoff, just kind of floating this idea to him. In that, Dave Canales takes the job because there's only 32 of them. He's got a track record that he's confident in because it's Dave Canales. Why would he not be confident in himself? That's just how he is all the time, Mr. Positivity, right?
Well, he has mirrors.
He's a good-looking dude. I wish I could wear a polo like he does, but that's another story.
Anything. I mean, he looks good in anything.
I wish I had that hair, but anyway.
Sure.
You look at Bryce Young. You're confident in your track record of who you've worked with,
right?
Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, etc. That you're like, yeah, I can fix this guy too.
I can fix him.
That's where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
Once you get into the situation, though, you realize, oh, wait a minute. There's a little bit more going on here than what the tape showed me, or there's just not like, I think I can. And you actually start working with that person. You go, wait a minute, this might not be what I thought it was.
There was probably a little more head trash up there for Bryce Young than Dave Canales has previously had to excavate from any other quarterback's head.
And this is where Bryce gets a lot of the credit for working not just through that head trash initially, but also the head trash of getting benched.
Well, yeah. Exactly.
So, and having to earn that trust back, which he did. Bryce gets a lot of credit for that.
100%.
Which is why I was very curious about how the Panthers were going to go about this preseason. If he's your guy and you've added weapons to help him out, and there's promise at the wide receiver group, it does you no good to just sit on it. Use the preseason for its intention. Work on these things with actual game reps. I don't care if it's not against the starters. It's game reps to test yourself. And so far, at least in one preseason game and the expectations I have for this weekend, they'll do it again. That's good.
Good. Thank God. Like I want nothing else. I'm sorry. But and look, I'm just a believer in that. I don't think you should play your starters for the entire preseason.
No.
We obviously, but guys could get hurt at any time. So I don't know why. I guess
get hurt in practice.
100. Yes, we see it all the time. So like what? Just because you didn't see it on TV in a game that they're making them play means it like is less impactful or less hurtful? Like no. And so it's just like, yeah, we need the live game reps. And I think Canales talked too about like him needing the mental like game prep week stuff. And I think that's important too. Like you saw him in week 1 against New Orleans last year. He looked like he'd won a contest and been shoved into the game like as a fan and was like, oh my God, these guys might kill me if they hit me.
Could be me.
Housekeeping.
Big thanks to Enovana for sponsoring Housekeeping Green Cleaning Solutions. You can check them out online at enovana.com.
If you have mess inside your mansion or trash in your cabana, get it green clean with Enovana.
We got the Sports Podcast Festival coming your way next weekend, August 23rd, night 0 before that at Bond Brothers East Side in Cary. Entry gets you a pint of OG Light. You get to hang out with our guy, Michael Felder. Matt Brown from Extra Points will be there talking about the business of college sports. If you're curious about where all these things are going, how it impacts NC State, Carolina, etc., Matt is a valuable source. And then, of course, Saturday, August 23rd at the Rialto, we will give you the Sports Podcast Festival. We're going to be there with former LSU head coach and NC State defensive coordinator Mike Archer. Caroline, Darney, and the crew are going to be there with Big Screen Sports. You're hanging out with them, right?
Yeah.
Do you guys have an agenda? You know what you're talking about?
Necessary Roughness, which I've never seen.
When are you watching it?
I don't know. Soon.
It's next week, Lauren.
I know. I'll be fine.
Yeah,
I can watch a movie and it's like
I respect it.
Yeah.
I'm a procrastinator.
I want it fresher on my brain anyways.
Fair.
Yeah.
And of course, we've got Split Zone Duo. They'll be in the house. I don't know. Maybe Will Wade shows up. I know Stephen Gottfried and Will Wade have this like bromance. So I'd be curious to see if that actually plays out. Regardless, it'll be a good time. Our friends at the Butcher's Market will be there with food. OG Light will be there. Home Field's got a fantastic long sleeve shirt that I'm excited for people to see. So it's going to be a great time. Look, there's no better way to start the football season than hanging out with us at the Rialto.
Yeah.
TheRialto.com. Get your tickets today. It'll be next week. Some other housekeeping notes. I launched the YouTube channel membership yesterday. Shout out to everybody who's already paid up $5 to be part of the YouTube membership. So with OG fans going away, we're still looking for different ways to do some premium things. So looking at where things were headed, I thought, all right, let's try this YouTube membership stuff. And for $5, you will get the mailbag. You will get OG Business. There's like little custom emojis. Like I think if you put in good, you'll get the drunk wolf to show up as in triangle good or drunk. There's some keyword that'll bring the emoji up, right? You get little badges and all that stuff on the chat and whatnot. So all that is on the YouTube member channel. I was looking at, how to price it. YouTube's very good. They're like, here are similar people or similar channels to yours. Here's what they do. Here's how they price it. I was like, yeah, $5 makes sense. So $4.99, you will go to the YouTube landing page. You'll see subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. And you'll also see join. Click join, $5. It gets you in on the premium stuff for OG fans. So go check that out. Speaking of YouTube, we are very, very close to 10,000 subscribers. I have kind of evolved as a human. I don't get too caught up in vanity metrics these days. Follower counts can also be a little wonky.
Oh, sure.
So we don't do much in the way of trying to goose that because I think it gives us a better idea of what's going on. However, I like round numbers. So to incentivize you to subscribe to the YouTube channel, go right now, subscribe. And if you are subscriber 10,000, you will get a Happy and Hail gift card, the black card, which gets you 20% off for life.
Let's take a break. Let's take a hockey break. Brought to you by Happy and Hail.
In the meantime, you can go to Happy and Hail, North Hills, North Raleigh. They got one in Durham. You can go check them out, and you can use the promo code for the app, OG25. That'll get you 25% off one-time order. Order online, schedule your pickup, get in, get out. It's very, very convenient, and you're going to have a great, great bowl or smoothie. So again, go to Happy and Hail, and if you're subscriber 10,000, you will get the black card. Gets you 20% off for life. I saw the sun for the first time yesterday, Brownlow.
Oh? Okay.
It's been raining nonstop. I don't know if you've noticed.
Oh, listen, I've noticed, yes.
The sun came out.
Yes, because I've been moving in it.
Of course, this also means now that the sun comes out and everything's been just sitting there soaking like the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, you're going to get, I started watching that too.
Oh, they don't.
That show is dumb.
That show is incredible.
It's the dumbest show.
It is wonderful.
Regardless, with all the moisture that's out there, this is prime breeding for mosquitoes, flies, all that kind of stuff. And if you have cats like me that don't do their job and take flies out, well, you're going to have to get the professionals. Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. Check them out online at bugsbite.com. You also want to use Mosquito Authority and Pest Authority to make sure that when you go outside and as the weather kind of starts chilling out a little bit, once we get past this, the summer's return after a false fall, you're going to want to go out inside and grill. Well, the funny thing is, you might open up your grill and realize, man, it's gross. Like gross. And no amount of spray is going to help with this. This is where our friends at NC Grill Rescue come in to play. Go to ncgrillrescue.com. I can vouch for NC Grill Rescue because I did not realize they were the ones who handle the Northbrook Pool grills. And those grills get work.
Yeah, okay? I'm sure. Yeah.
And they are squeaky clean. So NC Grill Rescue, it can handle a pool grill. They can handle your grill. Trust me on this. So go to ncgrillrescue.com and see what they can do for you. Outdoor kitchens, all that stuff. Weber's, they love a Weber. So I love a Weber. They can help you out on that. So go check them out, ncgrillrescue.com. Also, big thanks to our friends at Bloom & Blinds. After Darks are back. we'll have our first After Dark after the NC State ECU game. Then we'll follow that up with TCU UNC. And After Darks this season, really all ACC football talk is brought to you by our friends at Bloomin' Blinds. Check them out, 919-980-9815. Bloomin' Blinds. That's inblinds.com. Or call them directly. Chris is going to pick up. Family's going to take care of you. And it goes beyond just your house. I saw Chris recently posting on social media that they did some office shades, automation and all that kind of stuff. So if you got an office space that needs to upgrade, they can handle it. So go to Bloomin' Blinds, 919-980-9815. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline, columnist for the News and Observer, he is Luke DeCock. You and I do not have enough money to buy a sports franchise.
I mean, depends what franchise.
I mean, I can buy.
At this point, we might be able to buy the Courage for a bag of nickels.
The right things are going for the Courage these days, man. That might be something. The only thing I know I can afford is defunct sports team merch. That's about all I can do these days.
Those Skyhawks.
But clearly, Tom Dundon, Carolina Hurricanes owner, has a lot of money. I'm actually rethinking maybe you and I can like do a package deal, get Joe in here and be like, hey, a couple old sports guys are for sale too, Tom. Just saying. Maybe.
Here's the problem. You're not a distressed asset yet.
Yet. Keyword yet. All right. So,
I am. Like, you pick me up for assumed dead at this point. So,
all right. All jokes aside.
Yes.
None of us saw this coming, right? Was everybody just as surprised at the headline that, I got the Sportico. I subscribed to Sportico. It's a business expense. So when I saw the email alert that Tom Dundon was buying the Portland Trailblazers, I had to double check, like, wait, what is he thinking about? No, he's actually purchased it. And we've gotten some more details here. Shams has it as a valuation of around $4 billion. ESPN says it might even go above $4 billion from the Paul Allen estate. And then you also looked that he's part of an ownership group with some companies that sound like those venture capital outlets that have a lot of money to dish around to buy sports assets. So were you surprised by this coming out of left field, especially with all the Major League Baseball stuff?
Yes and no. One, you have a chance to buy an NBA franchise that for a long time was the only pro team in its market, not unlike the Hurricanes. Obviously, the Timbers are there now.
Mm-hmm.
And probably the Hurricanes should share this market with an MLS team if anyone had listened to me between 2000 and 2010 inclusive. But it's an opportunity. Like, unless you live in Charlotte, you cannot lose money running an NBA franchise. Like, either you make a profit or you hold on to it long enough where you sell it for $4 billion, as Paul Allen's estate did. Portland makes a lot of sense. Tom Dundon can use basically the same playbook he used with the Hurricanes with the Trailblazers. It's a franchise that's not dead. It's dormant.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming off a terrible run of terrible teams and terrible people. It's an easy sort of flip. You get the right people in there. The NBA, obviously, that it's kind of a parity league these days. It's not that the big three anymore. So you get some smart people in there. You spend a little money on players. You spend a little money on scouting. You put a team together. The market comes back. Look, I remember I'm old. I remember Clyde Drexler, Terry Porter, those guys giving the Bulls, Kevin Duckworth, giving the Bulls all they could handle. Mm-hmm. And Portland was nuts for the Blazers. You go back to Bill Walton, Portland loves the Trailblazers. Right now they hate them, but it's very much that sort of Stockholm syndrome we talk about with the Hurricanes between 2009 and 2019. You just needed someone to come in and say, hey, we can do this, we can make it the way it was, right? It's the pitch to the ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend. It can be like it was again. And I think that, Tom Dundon looks at that. He looks at the fact that by buying the team and this change of turning the page, he's probably going to get a lot of money from the city and county to fix up the arena and put in new revenue opportunities like view bars and bunker suites and multi-purpose rooms. And it wouldn't shock me. I don't know enough about the Moda Center to say this for sure. It wouldn't shock me if there was a real estate play involved in this, like parking lots or land the Trailblazer zone. So if you look at this from Tom Dundon's perspective, there's a playbook here that he can run with the Trailblazers that he knows works. And look, if he wanted to sell the Hurricanes now, he's going to make what, $400 or $500 million over what he paid, and some of what he paid was just paying off Pete's bills.
Yeah.
So that becomes pure profit for a guy who has access to capital. Very similar playbook to me. Obviously, the price is much higher, but this isn't like with the Hurricanes where he's writing a check. This is a group. It's the same kind of concept as baseball in Raleigh or Charlotte. He's the front man who knows what he's doing for a group of people who have money. And so in a sense, probably the discussions about MLB in North Carolina sort of helped frame his thinking about, well, if I wanted to go bigger, if this opportunity comes up to buy something at an estate sale, you're basically buying an NBA team out of someone's driveway with,
right. It helps that it's the right opportunity at the right time, because I wanted to go back to the real estate aspect of this, because I think that's the big picture here that people seem to be missing when it comes to what sports ownership is in 2025 going forward. But I did want to ponder this. Everything that you just laid out about the Portland Trailblazers applies to the Charlotte Hornets. And the Charlotte Hornets were for sale, and they were cheaper. And I would imagine that people in Charlotte going, well, wait a minute, we were for sale. This is checking off a lot of the boxes that you talked about this franchise that has this Stockholm syndrome that used to be a thing back in the day, not to the level of the Trailblazers, obviously, but that town is just begging for you to love the Hornets. And Dundon was like, nah, I'm good.
Now, a couple of things here. One, they share the market with an NFL team. So you are never going to be the lead dog when it comes to corporate sales, marketing, things like that. The appeal of the Trailblazers is they are the only show in town. Nothing against the Timbers, but their seasons don't overlap. I mean, get to my earlier point, if Pete Carmanos had any vision or any money, or someone else owned the Hurricanes, Hurricanes MLS is a perfect synergy in this market. Now, obviously, that ship sailed. It's over. Yeah. But if you go back to 2006, Hurricanes win the Stanley Cup. An owner with some vision and some money who maybe actually came here once in a while, you would say, hey, if we buy an MLS team for $20 million, our sales and marketing staff, our HR team, our media team, our rights deal with, what was it, Fox Sports South at that point, that all becomes free money, free synergy. Like, that's just boom. And I think that would have worked here. So those two sports, to me, it's like NHL or NBA and AAA baseball. They're fine together. They don't, now NHL and NBA together, to your point about why aren't the Trailblazers coming to Raleigh? That doesn't work. Now you're cannibalizing the same market at the same time and all of that. So
you can't do that.
So to me, the question I got from everybody was, are they moving the Trailblazers to Raleigh? I'd be like, well, no, that would be dumb. Because you're going from a market that's captive and beloved. And this isn't Hartford, right? This is a huge market, a growing market, a wealthy market in a wealthy part of the country that is underutilized by its pro sports team. So there's a lot of upside potential here. The other thing about that Hornets is there's no real estate play there. You're not developing around that arena. That arena is smack dab in the middle of downtown, which is great from a fan perspective, but from an ownership perspective does not offer the same potential. I don't know that Portland has that. I want to be clear about this.
But I can see where that's part of the play. I think it's more to the point that you're talking about in terms of competition and what that city is looking for, and being the only professional sports team that people want to put their arms around, and all that stuff.
It has the history. You're not buying an expansion team. The Trailblazers were at one point massive there. They were the heartbeat of that city, the same way the Hurricanes were in 02 and 06, and to a little bit are now, where they brought all these warring fans. So, in Portland, you have Oregon fans, you have Oregon State fans. You have Portland and Portland State to a lesser degree, but you also have kind of the whole old Pac-10 there, California, transplanted Californians, transplanted Washingtonians. And the Trailblazers brought all of those people together in the same way the Hurricanes bring State fans and Carolina fans and Duke fans together for 3 months of the year. So a lot of similarities there. It makes a lot of sense. The price is obviously a lot higher than buying an NHL team. But, the question I was asked yesterday was, why are so many NBA teams selling? And I just feel like now that the television deals are settled, someone like the Paul Allen estate can feel pretty good about what their valuation is, and they're not potentially leaving money on the table. So there's a stability there that means, the Suns and the Ishbia brother who bought them and is currently running them into the ground. Not that they weren't anyway. The Hornets, the Trailblazers, all the other teams that have sold. I just, the stability of now sort of moving on from Turner and getting back in bed with John Tesh and, Tim Robinson screaming basketball. all of that is sort of a stability that allows you to sort of say, okay, we know what this is worth. We know what we're willing to take for this. And someone like Tom Dundon is able to say, okay, I can sketch out the revenue projections. We do this. We know TV is going to be this. $4 billion makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing that I was having a conversation with somebody about. Well, is there something wrong with the NBA that these teams are being sold? Like, no, right now is the time to sell for all the reasons that you just laid out. And I wanted to focus on Dundon, the real estate guy, because if there's one thing that we understand with technology, everything's getting scaled. Okay. And a big tech company can come in and basically disrupt a old traditional business, rip it apart, leave it for parts and go from there. Right. But the one thing that they're not making more of is land. So that's how we get into these real estate deals and looking at sports franchises as a vehicle to redevelop and do more, basically look at more long-term investment and money-making opportunities that go beyond just the franchise itself. And where you really make your money when you buy a sports franchise is when you sell it, right? So this I don't know. I guess there's a couple things that kind of bother me in the last 24 hours of this news. One is I'm not a rich guy, but I understand that rich guys think differently. And that this is why they're rich and I'm not, okay? They're wired in a different way. They know how to view those market inefficiencies. They have zero issues in the case of Tom Dundon going after, loan sharking for cars, like that's a thing that he made a lot of money on. So I don't think like a rich guy. So I think this idea that, well, what does this mean for the Canes? It doesn't mean anything for the Canes. Look at who owns the Sixers, the Devils, right? Look at the ownership groups that like Stan Kroenke, I think owns 4 teams now, right? If I'm not mistaken. So this idea that you can't own multiple sports franchises is antiquated, number one. Number two, clearly Dundon has some interest in this area because he got what he wanted with the Lenovo redevelopment. And just a couple of weeks ago, we come to find out that he's part of a real estate deal outside Wake Competition Center in the airport to do this multi-use outdoor experience along with other stuff. So clearly Tom's got bigger picture stuff here going on that would allow for all these things to run concurrently. This does not mean one way or the other. If anything.
It's a business. It is ironic that the guy who's unblazing all the trails at Crabtree Park is buying a franchise called the Trailblazers.
This is funny. But what I find interesting here is Dundon has developed this reputation of being a hands-on guy. Now, I'm not disputing that early on, but clearly he must feel confident about who he's put in place with the Carolina Hurricanes that he can now start to expand his stuff, right?
I think there's two things going on here to your sort of original question before I had to make my joke. One is professional sports done right. So it's sort of not done the Peter Carmanos, not done the Michael Jordan way, is a business. It is a venture designed to take money from your pockets and put it into someone else's pockets. The fact that there are players and championships and trophies is almost immaterial. So owning multiple franchises, in this case, it's kind of meaningless. It's almost like if you had a baseball team here as well, like they're just independent businesses. MLS, the setup there where it's single entity and kind of all the league sort of quote unquote owns all the franchises, all of that was really just an institutionalization of the way it works. Owners will fight with each other, but in the end, they are all sipping from the same trough.
Yeah.
And that's why you tend to have more owner solidarity than player solidarity in labor disputes. So the idea that like, oh, he's going to be distracted or whatever, my suspicion is, knowing Tom, the Hurricanes will always be his baby because he feels like his fingerprints are on that team and will continue to be. He will continue to be the sort of magic 8 ball that Eric Tulsky goes to, like, hey, we want to do this. What do you think? Or Dundon will continue to go to Tulsky and say, we need to get either Mitch Marner or Nick Ehlers this summer, and I don't care what it costs. Like, he's going to continue to be involved that way because he's been a part of that decision-making process since he bought the team in a way that a lot of owners aren't. And Don Waddell used to get angry at me when I referred to him as a receptionist, but in some ways that was true. His value was that he was a communicator who knew everybody, so he could find out about things and learn about things that Dundon as an outsider never would. Now, obviously, Don was the GM too, but his real value to Dundon was not just as a hockey person, but his Rolodex and his ability to connect with people. Now, I don't think as the Trailblazers operation, Dundon is not the sole owner the way he is with the Hurricanes. I don't imagine that he's quite as personally invested in the success of that franchise as he is with the Hurricanes. So I would expect that to be a more of a let's hire some smart basketball people and let him go. I still think for him, the long-term play, and this is looking out 10 to 20 years, get the real estate set up around PNC, have that start turning over revenue, get the Trailblazers turning over revenue. At some point, if the Jones family ever wants out, I would not be shocked at all if Dundon sold the Hurricanes, sold the Trailblazers, and folded all of that money into the Cowboys. I think in 20 years, we're going to be talking about Tom Dundon's son as executive VP of the Cowboys in the Stephen Jones role, because I think in the end, being an NFL owner is really the top of the pyramid for these guys.
Well, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and
I
think
you're going to need to be able to sell 2 franchises to afford what an NFL team is valued at, because they're running out of rich guys that have the cash on hand to do it. That's why they're looking at private equity. That's why they're doing all these things, because the valuations of NFL teams have gotten so crazy. You've priced yourself out of certain American money.
Yeah. So, and look, the experience of putting together a group to buy the Trailblazers, the experience of putting together a group to explore Major League Baseball, these are all things that could help you. Obviously, the NFL wants a primary owner, but David Tepper started out as a minority owner of the Penguins, Pirates, Panthers, Steelers. And there are other groups and families that own parts of teams, so he could farm out certain pieces of the operation to people. But in the end, having the equity in the Blazers, having the equity in the Hurricanes, which look, that has all been amortized. Whatever he sells the Hurricanes for now, whenever that day comes, and I'm not saying it's going to happen soon, that is going to be free money. That is just a giant bag of money that he stumbled into because Pete Carmanos was dumb enough to run this franchise into the ground, and nobody else was smart enough, especially in this area, to see the opportunity there. When we write the story of sports in the triangle, and Tom Dundon walks away with $1 billion and maybe a Stanley Cup ring from running the Hurricanes for however many years, like the rich people in Raleigh failing to step in and save this team when Pete Carmanos was killing it with his empty pockets and bluster and braggadocio is an absolute failure of the triangle as a sports market, as a market. The lack of courage, the lack of vision, the lack of foresight. Forget about MLS 20 years ago. The Hurricanes in 2015 needed a savior, and nobody in this market stepped up. There were people who could have done it, and it's shameful. So someday this is going to get sold to someone from out of the area who has even less interest in this area than Dundon, and it's going to be our fault. But that's a story for another day.
That we can do that in 2050 when we do the next 25 years of sound bites that explain 25 years of triangle sports. Now, we'll close on this. Dundon clearly has a lot of money, and he shares a building with NC State. NC State needs money. I mean, I saw the news yesterday when we got done recording that they're because like every athletic department needs to find revenue streams. So we know what we'll do. We'll do more concerts at Carter Finley Stadium. Hasn't been a concert at Carter Finley Stadium. So I think Rolling Stones came through in 2016.
Yeah, the outdoor game was the last big non-state event there, I believe.
Yeah, the outdoor game was the last non-state event. So they're going to bring more concerts. Boo Corrigan talked to the media about ways that they're trying to bring in more money and being patient with realignment and stuff like that. If I'm Boo Corrigan, I'm just like, I hit up Tom Dundon at the next meeting over at Centennial Authority and be like, can I hold $5? Like, hey man, like we need investment into this thing, man, for wherever it's going in 2030. Can we hold $5? I mean, how do you not shoot your shot if you're NC State right now with Tom Dundon?
I mean, I really feel like NC State had a chance to shoot its shot over the renovation negotiations when they were holding it up over the parking lots.
Yeah.
And all they got out of it was the tailgating area. I mean, I think that was a huge missed opportunity for NC State. I really believe that they had the leverage to say, build us a practice facility, build us a Wolfpack Club building with a 2-story team store and whatever that will lease from you. And maybe they will. Maybe they will. Maybe that'll be in one of the phases. And maybe that's what Boo Corrigan needs to talk to Tom Dundon about now is when we put up these 2 parking decks in the very first phase, starting next fall, we need a building in there that is 4 stories tall and has a 2-story team store and then a 2-story Wolfpack Club lounge with a patio overlooking Carter Finley and then 3 stories of condos that we sell. Like there's got to be a real estate play in there for State. If I were State, I would have had it written into the agreement. Like, you are going to build us X amount of square feet for our purposes that we will lease from you.
Maybe it's not Boo. Maybe it's Will Wade that needs to go to Tom Dundon and say, I need a strong ass offer.
Well, I'm sure Will Wade's already, but it's
if you're Will Wade and you know what it takes, what you need to build a basketball roster, and you're going to bring.
You want me to fill this building?
You want
maybe put a couple $1,000,000 in my pocket to kind of slip past CFC.
A full Lenovo Center for basketball helps Tom Dundon, right?
I mean, it's bad enough that they're going to the Centennial Authority with a cup in their hand, asking for the money that's supposed to go to building renovations, selling pencils and asking for it to go to basketball instead, which actually isn't unfair. I mean, the original intent of that money was to upgrade the building in ways that helps NC State, but there aren't a lot of places in that building that NC State controls. Now, again, if you had some vision, maybe you say 5 years ago, instead of spending $2 million to renovate the locker room every 3 years, why don't we build a space like they have this varsity club, NC State space on the second level that hasn't been updated in 25 years that no one ever uses except when other stuff is under. Like, why wouldn't you say, like, well, why don't you allocate us some NC State branded spaces that we can use for hospitality, and we'll use that money on that will generate revenue for us. So, that there's a sort of lack of vision.
The rules have changed, though. The rules have changed rapidly in the last couple of years, and I think everybody's playing catch up. State's not.
Yeah, I will push back on that, because Carolina was doing things like the Blue Zone many, many years ago. I don't think they were ahead of the curve. I think they were along the curve.
They just operated at a different money level than NC State.
The Butch Mahal is a revenue generator. And they were trying to find more revenue generators. And I just think NC State spent a lot of time. Like, here's the thing. Do you know what it costs to rent a parking spot for football season at NC State?
I do not.
These things that are so important that we're going to hold up an entire $2 billion development and $300 million in arena renovations, because parking is the single most important thing to an NC State fan and NC State University. I'm going to read to you what it costs, what parking costs at NC State, and you tell me if supply and demand seems to fit here.
Okay.
Parking permit prices will remain the same at $150 per permit. Starting with the 2025 season, each lot will have a required donation ranging from $0 to $350, depending on the lot selected. Now, that's on top of Wolfpack Club contributions and whatever. But if these parking spots are so valuable, why are they $500 a season?
Yeah, that's cheap, all things considered.
You want to find revenue, put a 10x on parking costs. People will bitch.
But
there's $20 million right there. There's your payroll.
Which is funny, because State actually has opportunities to be good in basketball now. Nobody's talking about State football. They have an opportunity this year to surprise some people,
State,
so it's there for them.
State could be, I believe this.
Okay.
Could be wrong. And this depends a little bit. Carolina's roster, to me, I just don't know. Mm-hmm. There's so much change there. There's so much uncertainty. There's so much sort of range of outcomes with the players they brought in.
We're going to talk to Andrew Jones about that here in a second.
Yeah, it's hard for me to assess Carolina. Forget about football. It's hard for me to assess Carolina basketball.
Right.
Will Wade, the players he's brought in, from Darian Williams, Trey Holloman, the McNeese State kids on down, I think that is the third, if not the second best team in the ACC.
With Duke being one?
Duke being one, and Louisville being two.
Yeah.
When you look at Will Wade's history as a head coach, 7 of the 9 seasons he's been a head coach, he has dramatically outperformed his preseason KenPom rating, which means whatever we think State is, it's going to end up being better. And I actually think State's pretty good. Yeah. So that's the players that they brought in. It's kind of a different level.
Will Wade's got the juice, man. We talked about that yesterday. He clearly has the juice. Now we'll see if he can do something that a lot of NC State coaches have failed to do, actually deliver on those promises. So we shall see. Luke DeCock, columnist, News and Observer. Always a riveting conversation. We'll talk to you later, man.
See you.
Gordon Miller is going to save you money, but the only way he can save you money is if you call Miller Lending or visit the website, MillerLending.com/the OG. That is our landing page. Call them at 919-447-3377 and tell them that we sent you, that the OG sent you. You refinance, you will get a Raleigh Wine Shop gift basket. Now, you're probably thinking, I thought the rates suck. That's all relative compared to what your personal situation is. But I can tell you this. We keep seeing more and more reports about credit card debt. I can tell you what the interest rates are better than your credit card interest rate. So consolidate that debt. Use your home equity. It's there for you to use. So contact our friends at Miller Lending. Here's the other thing too. You might be thinking about buying a house or something like that. Rates might not be great, but rates fluctuate. They're never going to stay static. And essentially what you're doing, if you pay closing costs, which you never do with Miller Lending, but if you pay closing costs to have this like mental reset of, I'm paying a slightly lower rate than is available, it's going to take you 8 years to break even on that rate after you paid closing costs. And typically people refinance about every 4 years. See where the math ain't mathing? So contact our friends at Miller Lending today. 919-447-3377. MillerLending.com/the OG. You get that Raleigh Wine Shop gift basket when you take it to close. And to make it even sweeter, Giglio is going to throw in a rowback for you. We are approaching rowback season like never before. Dropping new polo prints all the time. They've got new team gear hoodies. Saw the new ECU hoodie, which is pretty money. Got NC State. They got Carolina. They just dropped the new NC State and Carolina polo collections. You want to check that out. And our friends in Charlotte, if you put in CLT, that's the one thing you can find. CLT on the website, rowback.com. You'll get the Crown polo, which is money. And of course, you will save when you use the promo code OG20, 20% off your order at Rowback. So go check them out at rowback.com. Speaking of houses, seems to be some confusion as to where the current triangle housing market is. Is it stagnant? Is it cooling off? Is it still hot? All those kind of things. You can read about that stuff, or you can just talk to some experts about it. Hometown Realty. So check them out online at myhtr.com. And with all this talk about home, you got insurance, right? You probably think you got a great rate for insurance. You've saved money. Are you, though? Matt Davis can save you more money. And the only way to find out is to start the conversation. So hit up Matt Davis, insuregarner.com, 919-779-8277. All I'm asking you as a listener is to start a conversation. Maybe you've heard us talking about Matt Davis a bunch since you've been listening to the podcast. You're like, nah, I'm fine. Are you, though? There was only one way to find out, and that's the call. 919-779-8277. Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group hotline is Andrew Jones, now with Tar Heel 24/7. Andrew, what's going on, man?
What's up? I'm still getting used to saying that.
It's taken me a little. I had to correct myself a couple of times. I'm like, it's Tar Heel 24/7. Tar Heel 24/7. All right. For those who might not be familiar with some of the changes that have gone on and what you're doing with Tar Heel 24/7, what's like the Cliff Notes version of what's happened in the last couple of weeks?
Inside Carolina decided to move over to On3. Now, there was the On3 takeover of Rivals. I was at Rivals, Tar Heel Illustrated. I decided to step away for better life balance. 2 days, a lot of people know about that. I need to go into that. 2 days before I found out that this was happening, I said, well, they're making a decision for me anyway. It didn't really matter what I thought. And so the date for them to move over was August 1st because IC's contract with 24/7 ended July 31st. So a week after I wrote that column, 24/7 called me and said, we'd like you to take over. And they actually mentioned life balance in the first, like before they even let me talk. So I thought, okay, this is good.
Check. That's what I want to hear.
Because Rivals had no understanding what life balance was. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up making the decision I did. So we talked for a while, kind of got things together, built a staff that's very impressive. I've got resources that I never could have imagined at Rivals. We got John Henson on our staff. So this was a no-brainer for me, much better situation. We are now on that platform. We inherited everything that IC had before, including subscribers, which is interesting to dialogue with people that are IC loyalists and trying to figure out who we are. And they went over to On3 and they inherited my subscribers, which wasn't this many. And some of the people are probably having the same conversations there. I think Carolina fans win because Inside Carolina is a great site. They've been great for years. I thought we were damn good at Tar Heel Illustrated, especially on a shoestring budget. Now we have a much better situation. So UNC fans win because they get two great sites that are fully loaded.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. What we need more of is coverage, right?
Yeah.
And as I've said this to you, and I'll say it on the podcast all the time, I need you, Andrew. I need you on that wall because I can't do what I do without your reporting. So let's actually get into that.
Okay.
It's football time. We've kind of gone away from all the circus at ACC kickoff. Jordan Hudson can kind of pop up in the news, but it's not May anymore. So it doesn't really dominate the headlines like it used to. We're talking football now. And the one thing that I found surprising, and I don't know if you're surprised by this or maybe people around the program are surprised by this, Carolina did not show up in the AP preseason top 25 poll. They didn't even show up in others receiving votes, which I thought was interesting. And I thought that Bill Belichick of all people, with the coaching acumen, the Super Bowls, all that kind of stuff, would at least give them a bump to at least receive other votes. So I was surprised that they did not show up in the preseason top 25 in any form or fashion. Am I crazy thinking that?
I think the reason is because there's more of a microscope on what the roster looks like. People didn't care as much before. Mac Brown can recruit. Of course they have talent. They should be pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good coach. They had Drake May. Of course they're going to be ranked. Sam Howell. Of course they're going to be ranked. So I think it's different now because what it did is it forced people to actually go line by line over the roster. And most people, I do laugh when people say, boy, look at that roster. It's not very impressive. I asked them, did you ever see Willow Steen play at Jacksonville State? How many times you watch Boise State play?
Right.
How many times you watch Troy play? Daniel King's supposed to be a really good guard. Nobody knows. I don't know. I never watched Boise last year, maybe like at 12:30 at night on a Friday night or something like that. So we really don't know what the roster is. And I think that that's a big part of it because no names are really popping out. Maybe Andrew Simpson does. Maybe Thad Dixon does. Really nobody that Carolina has back pops out to anybody. So that unfamiliarity makes it easy to say, well, they're just not very good. And also, I think a lot of people believe that he's going to fall on his face. That his approach won't work with 18-year-olds, which I find interesting because without seeing it play out in front of me, that's an easy take to have and an understandable take to have. But the weeding out process is what's really important here to me is because they weeded out all the dudes that can't handle it. Now, I'm not saying everybody that left can't handle it. There were a lot of reasons why guys left, but they moved dudes out of the program.
Yeah.
This is an acquisitional roster, 100%. So the guys that are there now that were on the program, they were in the program last year, they're tough enough to deal with it. The guys that they brought in, they're chosen, and they're chosen for a lot more reasons than what their specs are and what their 40 time is. There's a lot of things that go into what Belichick sees in a football player. We saw that at New England for 2.5 decades. So I think that that's what's really interesting. I think that's what's playing into it. But I also think even more interesting than that, Joe, is if they beat TCU and then they take care of Charlotte and Richmond, go to UCF, and they win on national TV, how quickly do they rise in the poll? How quickly do people say, maybe this guy is a genius? And then they shoot up and they become overrated real fast.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be
that'll happen with the Clemson game. They'll go back into the overrated stat.
It'll be good for Clemson, though. That'll be helpful.
Oh, come on.
Well, if they keep it up, yeah.
Dabo's got that game circled. There's a little bit of.
Oh, well, sure. But I'm just saying it's good for them ultimately because, to have ACC teams that they play win more of their games than they're supposed to necessarily is always
What's
good.
Interesting is the only two Clemson appearances in Chapel Hill since 2011 or something like that.
Yeah.
Now would be Mac's first season back against Dabo, and they nearly beat him, and now Belichick's. So if Carolina's ever going to beat Clemson again, they're kind of getting those opportunities handed to them, aren't they?
All I know is that the ratings are going to be really, really good for that game, regardless.
Regardless, but what if they don't win? What if they look like crap against TCU?
I know.
It's going to be very. To me, I'm almost as interested in how the nation views them, how the pundits view them, as I am how they play. Because before it was kind of an easy, well, Carolina shows up to Blacksburg, number 10 in the country, and they stink, and everybody just shovels dirt on their gun.
Yeah, well, people get to break out their Mac Brown jokes.
Yeah, they do.
Off-season champs, typical Mac Brown, all that kind of stuff. What's interesting that you're bringing up is something that Giglio has brought up. Giglio's on vacation this week. And it's not so much, his point isn't so much about what will voters think, what will pundits think. It's more about making sure that the players aren't discouraged going forward because there's an opportunity to correct anything that happened in week one, which is always going to be a wonky game regardless. Every school in college football is going to have a wonky week one in their history. It's how do you bounce back from that so you're not embarrassed by UCF a couple of weeks later or embarrassed by Clemson a couple of weeks later. That to me is the curious part for Belichick that I don't know he's ever handled, because we're dealing with kids. That's where the dealing with 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds is different than dealing with pros. And that's the curiosity that I have. How do you keep that room confident going forward?
You guys will find this interesting. I put on my nerd hat the other day, went back and added up how many games he was a head coach of preseason games in the NFL. He coached 110 preseason games in the NFL.
God.
And that doesn't include the joint practices where you scrimmage.
Right.
So he's had all those opportunities to evaluate. And he loves the word evaluate, but it's really hard to evaluate against yourself in fall camp when you can only hit so much. So he's going to be looking at stuff for the very first time on that when it's on national TV, live action against a head coach who had a team in the national title game 3 years ago. And knows his program. I mean, they have an identity that's established. They could throw. I guarantee they're going to try to run against that front line, and if they do it successfully, then their quarterback's going to have a field day. That's the way they're looking at things right now. So Belichick is going to see his team in live action for the very first time when the rest of us do, and that will be the first time in his life, because it's not just as a head coach; it's all those years as an assistant coach as well. Yeah, this is very foreign to him, and I've asked him about this, and I've asked his son Steve. We had him last week, and Steve immediately went to the COVID year when they didn't have exhibition games. Yeah, but that was the same for everybody. That was a one-off. The COVID year was bizarre in every way, shape, and form. Yeah. I don't think we can take much from that and use it with any substance. The rest of it, though, is 100% what he's dealt with, and this is very foreign. So I asked him yesterday about balancing the evaluation with the contact right now, especially at the line of scrimmage, because the most attrition is there, and the more they hit, the better chance those guys get hurt. They've already lost their best offensive lineman. It was a 9-contact injury. Oof. So how does he know what he has before TCU without running them ragged, banging each other and wearing them out, or without maybe he does the opposite and they don't hit enough and it's very new that night, and we see swift changes and rotations and player groupings through the course of the game.
Right. That's interesting too, because like there's this thing that they've really been trying to emphasize, like UNC is not soft anymore. And it's like, well, that's going to take some time, A, and then B, maybe you don't do that by having them like go too hard in practice either.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line. I mean, what would you do? Yeah. This is such a new world for him. He's 73 and he's in a body of water he's never been in before. It's wet. All right. It's got some salt in it. Right. Yeah, but the waves are different and everything else is different. It's warmer, it's colder. It's totally it's uncharted for him. And his staff are mostly guys that have been more recently in the NFL. So there's not a huge college contingent on that staff that can help guide them through this. They're just going to have to learn as they go along. And that's going to be one of many fascinating things about covering this team and watching this team.
It's funny you bring up the toughness, and Lauren talked about the toughness, and we've all been around long enough that we've heard all the things about how this defense is going to get better, right? And I think the best it's ever looked was probably in the first iteration of Gene Chizik. Am I off base in thinking that the Gene Chizik 1.0 and the bend don't break was probably the best we've seen that defense?
Well, indictment on Mac Brown, if you will, is that the best defense he had was his first one. Yeah. Bateman, and he had a quarterback play linebacker, and he had Jeremiah Gemmel, who had 10 career snaps playing linebacker alongside him, calling the defense. They had Aaron Crawford and Jason Sturbridge playing 90 snaps a game up front. They had no depth.
Right.
And that was the best defense Mac had. So those weren't his guys. And that was a hodgepodge team. Those weren't his guys. I mean, thank God for him. He had Miles Thornton in the back calling stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. So there is an indictment on Mac Brown and his talent evaluation and where he wants to put guys. I don't have those questions about Bill Belichick. The question is, there are players who can absorb the knowledge you're trying to give them. I always use our friend Michael Felder as an example of this. Felder will be the first one to tell you when he was at Carolina, he could get every concept you wanted to give him. He just couldn't play. Yeah. So I think that's the real question going forward, is that I'm sure that's going to be the best taught defensive room in the country, but can they play? That's the question we don't know yet.
Yeah. Well, to your point about Mac, somebody in the program told me recently, after watching some of this team practice in the spring and now here in the fall, it's different in the fall, He said Mac just loved eye candy. And you can go back to his first time at Carolina when he wanted Oscar Davenport over Chris Geldorf.
Yeah.
He wanted Mike Thomas over Jason Stanisek.
Yeah.
He wanted Chris Sims over Major Applewhite. And he loves the eye candy. And he said that's why Des Evans played 55 snaps a game and Bo Atkinson played 25, even though Bo was 5 times a player. Mac loves the eye candy. Belichick is the opposite. He wants guys to be a 5-star in pre-snap. He wants to be 5-star in a film room, 5-star in team meetings, and he figures that will make up for maybe not being a 5-star physically. And if he has a collection of players on that side of the ball that combine that, and a few of them are 5-star across the board, 4-star across the board, he thinks he can be very successful. Again, another very interesting thing to watch from his team, to try to learn his philosophies and see how they play out on the college landscape.
It's interesting to me though, because like in the NFL, I think it can still be art, but it's more science to evaluate players, right? And I think in college we're seeing, even when you get the transfer portal and you get these guys that on paper it should all work, all it could take is just like a couple personalities not meshing well in any given positional meeting room or whatever it is, or someone's girlfriend breaking up with them, and all of a sudden you've got a disaster on your team. It'll be interesting to see how Belichick deals with that aspect.
Belichick
too.
having to deal with the play of a college kid
right?
going through some
Exactly.
growth problems. That's a real thing.
Well, guys, and with that comes the parental factor. Do you think Vince Wilfork's parents ever talked to Belichick?
No.
Do you think Wes Welker's dad called him up and said, "I don't like the routes my kid's running"?
Maybe Brady's dad called him. Maybe
if anyone had that was okay, it would probably be him.
Yeah. Because
right now it's going to happen
on radio. Brady's dad would go on radio to talk about stuff. So
but that's okay. Tom Brady can do what Tom Brady needs to do.
That's fair.
But he has a lot of those things to deal with, and the parents are going to love it now. Some of the parents I've talked to love it now. But if they're 2 and 3 and they're staring at, they have an open date before and after Clemson.
Yeah.
So they go to Central Florida. They actually have a home game against Richmond. Then they have a home game against Clemson 3 weeks later. Then there isn't one for another few weeks after that. They have one home game in 6 weeks. And if it's Clemson, they could go 6 weeks without winning in front of their fans. And that's when basketball starts, with a very interesting roster that has people excited. How is the fan base, with all this sick and sold, are they going to tune out if they're 2 and 3 with all that dead time in and after the Clemson game?
It's interesting you bring that up, because that's where we'll close the conversation. Chip Patterson and I talked about Whit Babcock, Virginia Tech AD, and the PowerPoint presentation that's now out in the wild. He's going to address the Virginia Tech Board of Governors about what they need to do. Boo Corrigan, NC State AD, last week talked about what they're trying to do with revenue generation, being patient with where things might shake out when it comes to conference realignment. North Carolina is in a completely different position. I think we all agree on that. And showing out for football with the investment is one thing.
And they raise ticket prices.
That's one thing. We've seen this before, Carolina. And I know people will tell me, well, it's different now because of what's at stake. And I would agree. There's a lot at stake with conference realignment, and something that Andrew, you and I talked about at ACC kickoff. Like, it's fair. We know that they're trying to put themselves in position for the SEC or potentially the Big Ten, or whatever it is. But you have to also follow through with the culture. And to your point, that's the biggest what if unknown. And I don't think anybody can actually answer this question. If they don't win in front, all the Chapel Thrill stuff with Chase Rice doing a concert and the activations there on the quad, which we've seen various iterations of in the past.
They've tried.
They've tried and tried and tried and tried. And there's this kind of like, it's almost a fan training over time that's hard to overcome.
They're used to bad things happening. Let's put it that way.
In just a couple of weeks. So that's the great unknown with this buy-in that's coming up.
So the Butch Davis's first home game, his opener was against JMU. I covered a game at Duke that afternoon and then went over to Carolina for night. And my assignment was actually not to be in the press box, but to be in the stands.
Okay.
Because Carolina fans were fully excited when Butch came and they thought, hey, we finally care. They stepped over Bedore and they hired him. In fact, I was told a story that the first time Dick Bedore ever met Butch Davis was when he introduced him on the podium to be head coach.
That tracks.
True or not, I don't know. But that was sort of how that went, because that's the only way you could have gotten a Butch Davis in there at the time. Right. The atmosphere that night was off the charts. It was JMU, and they were still FCS.
Yep.
Go up to Mac's first game, home game in Chapel Hill, Mac Part 2. Unbelievable atmosphere.
Yep.
People buying in for football. It's going to be that way September 1st. The different, but is there a difference between how it turns out here as opposed to there? Butch got fired, embarrassed the university. Mac got fired, walked out in an ugly way.
Embarrassed
himself walking out to the point where all ties are basically cut to Chapel Hill.
Yeah.
All right. He's doing this every time he's got a camera in front of him.
Yeah.
So, and I say that having a lot of respect for Mac, but I don't have respect for how he left.
Sure.
Now we've got a guy coming in who, like Butch Davis, really had a spot. He needed to go somewhere. That was a spot. That was where he wanted to do the Butch Davis thing, and he did the Butch Davis thing. Now there's someone coming in here that may or may not need it, but he's at the end of his career. His legacy is secure. I don't think anything that happens in Chapel Hill is going to affect his legacy in an adverse way. He can only enhance it if that's possible. And it's sort of a similar situation. Does he end up leaving in a few years to the point where he can't even turn it over to his son?
Yeah.
Or does it work so well he can turn it over, and this is finally the new leaf being turned? That would make, if it doesn't work, that would be 3 times this century. They've tried it with Butch Davis, Mac again, and with Bill Belichick, and it doesn't work. And it has to make you wonder, maybe one area Bobby Bowden was wrong. Maybe it's not a sleeping giant. If it is, it's got to work at some point with one of these guys, doesn't it?
You would think so.
You would think. Then again, there is some question as to whether or not Bobby Bowden actually ever said that. That's
really?
I heard him say it.
I heard him say it.
You
heard him say it. Okay. Our old colleague Andrew Carter and I were talking about this because when we did our 25 sound bites that explain the last 25 years of Triangle Sports, which, by the way, if you haven't listened to it, it's a 2.5 marathon of history. We got into the Coach K, Gerald Henderson, G is the real victim. He actually never said that.
No, he didn't.
It was implied, and that's when Andrew was like, same thing with the whole sleeping giant. So there we go. Andrew heard.
But the sleeping giant thing may have also been a connection to Mac because Bowden really liked Mac.
Yeah, that's true.
So North Carolina may not have been a sleeping giant when Dick Crum was there to Bobby Bowden, but maybe it was when Mac was there. But I did hear him say it.
Well, I'll just
look.
I'll
Bobby
use
Bowden didn't know the names of his players. He
Steve
just knew the numbers. He was one of those guys like Sparky Anderson would say a lot of nice things about a lot of people. Yeah. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt as well.
Steve Logan said, nah, it's not a sleeping giant. It's comatose. It ain't waking up, man. That's what Steve Logan would say back in the day. Now, we keep mentioning Butch Davis. I would be upset at myself if I didn't bring this up because one of my guys sent me a picture of the stadium, and we keep talking about Butch Davis. Navy is back, baby.
Oh my God.
Navy is back in the building. So hope you all are ready.
I can't.
Well,
all right, Andrew.
Butch was so proud.
He was.
When they wore Navy pants at Rutgers on a Thursday night. Yes, that was one of his crowning achievements. I covered that game, and when they came out, this everybody hit their cell phones and we're calling their newspapers. They're wearing Navy tonight, and the Rutgers media is like, "What the hell's wrong with these guys?"
Yeah, they're like, "What?"
No, this is
exactly, man.
Jeez.
So yeah,
one of Butch's everlasting marks.
Well, Navy
I'll never forget that either.
Navy will have a presence for Bill Belichick season 1. I'm very excited about this. Andrew Jones, Tar Heel 24/7. Hey man, congrats on the move over to the site. Love that you're still doing this, and we'll talk to you later.
Absolutely. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Big thanks to our friends at Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. WH.lawyer is the website. So Giglio had to drive up to the Northeast. And you know how Giglio is with cars.
Yes.
So I'm hoping he comes back with no tickets.
Yeah, seriously.
But if he does, well, we got to plug Whitaker and Hamer, WH.lawyer. All jokes aside, actually, we had a friend of mine. There was an accident. Everybody's fine, but obviously you got to get insurance involved and attorneys and all that kind of stuff. He's like, Whitaker and Hamer? I go, yes, Whitaker and Hamer. Check them out, WH.lawyer. Personal needs, small legal needs for your business, they've got it covered for you. All you got to do is go to WH.lawyer. Big thanks to our friends at Longleaf Swine. Check them out downtown, longleafswine.com. Longleaf does a whole bunch of great stuff. Lunch, dinner, you name it. Brunch on Sundays is undefeated, in my opinion. You can get OG Light in the can at Longleaf Swine in downtown Raleigh, but they also do special dinners. Okay? They got beer pairings. They got bourbon pairings. All sorts of fun stuff Find out how you can get involved with that by going to their website. Go to longleafswine.com. Heck, make it a date night. It's not raining, theoretically, for once. So go out, have a good time. And then when you're done, head on over to our friends at Two Roosters. It's really easy if you go to Longleaf and then Two Roosters over on Person Street. They got locations all across the triangle. We're talking Lake Boone Shopping Center, out in Wake Forest. You name it, they're there. And Two Roosters is always getting it done with their ice cream. I'm sad that our flavor is no longer available. I'm sad, but they did bring the peanut butter cookie back. So that's good stuff too. And don't forget about the pint of the month, the secret mystery pint of the month club. So go to tworoosters.com today to find out what the rotating flavors are. And just go out. School's about to start back up for traditional calendars. One last hurrah before the kids go back to school. Go get yourself some ice cream. Heck, I was at the Greystone Shopping Center this past weekend for Chris Clark's 50th birthday. Man, I've never seen kids happier than walking out of there with Two Roosters ice cream. So head on over to Two Roosters. Again, that website is tworoosters.com. All right, let's get out of here with some Hey Joe, as always, brought to you by our friends at Nature's Relief. Check them out online at naturesreliefhempstore.com. They'll deliver. Now, I'm a person who likes to go to Nature's Relief. I like to see what they have. I always get kind of caught up in the names. Do you get caught up in the names of some of the gummies that are available?
I try not to because I know that,
marketing works sometimes.
I know.
But you can ask the experts, like, hey, look,
yes,
I am looking for something that I don't want to melt into my couch while I'm watching The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives and being mad at what I'm watching. I don't want to melt in the couch. I just want to vibe. Like, oh yeah, we got you. Here's what you need. Well, what if I do want to melt in the couch? Oh, we got that too. So Nature's Relief has all that stuff. So go check them out online, naturesreliefhempstore.com.
919-444-2211. Call the OG Sports phone and curse or don't.
All right, let's go to a 704.
Hey guys, it's Paul. Just calling in you guys are talking about the Savannah Bananas, and I will never support that organization because I used to work for their owner, Jesse Cole, at his little-known first team, the Gastonia Grizzlies, back when I was in college. It was a summer job for me, and I was the MC of the park. And he was, at the time, they were starting the Savannah Bananas, so he was never there. It was left to the general manager. So it kind of sucked. We got paid $500 for an entire summer of baseball games. So that was fucking brutal. But he was never there, so it was fine, I guess. And then the last game of the year for me, because I had to leave because I was going to the Olympics. I was going to the Rio Olympics with UNC journalism. That's a whole different story. He showed up, and he was the biggest fucking asshole I've not ever worked with, but the top 3 assholes I've ever worked with. That guy had a god complex. And this was before the Savannah Bananas took off and was making millions of dollars or whatever the hell they're making and selling out stadiums. So I can't even imagine how big his fucking dome has gotten since the Bananas has taken off. That guy's a dick. I will never, ever support anything Savannah Bananas do. Peace.
Damn, Paul.
Wow. Okay.
Hey, man, that's what the sports phone is for. Sometimes
like the tea.
Sometimes you just got to get some things off your chest.
There you go.
Have you taken Alex to a Bananas game?
No.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Savannah Bananas?
Of course. Yes. They often show up on my TikTok. And I enjoy it. I have a good time.
It's fun. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
Like I've said, like I talked about this earlier in the week because I made an offhanded comment. I'm like, don't get me started on the Bananas. And the reason why I said that is I don't like how people try to apply what the Bananas are good at and try to make it like, well, this is what all sports should do. Like, no, it's a completely different genre.
Exactly.
Okay. And you just nailed it. That's one thing I didn't even bring up when I talked about the business model and how it's a one-off thing and you go one time a year. It's a great time, all that kind of stuff. I totally forgot about the TikTok aspect of this.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's perfect for TikTok.
Because you get seeing handsome dudes dance. Right?
Works for me.
Okay, then.
I have a good time watching it.
It's kind of like how I was with Hunting Wives. I had a good time watching it. All right, let's go to an 828.
Hey, Joe and Joe. I am a listener from way up in the corner, northwestern North Carolina. Just heard y'all talk about the Speedway Classic at Bristol. I went to it last weekend, and like you said on the show, it pretty much was an unmitigated disaster. There was the rain issues. The food ran out. Even before the food ran out, it was poor quality and expensive. The pregame concert, the acoustics were bad, and half the stadium couldn't hear it. So it was rough. Whatever you saw online, I'd say it was as bad, if not worse. But the reason I wanted to call in and talk about it is because aside from baseball, I've seen a lot of chatter that there were some NHL execs in attendance, and that Bristol Motor Speedway has been relatively vocal about wanting to continue doing events like these, and that hockey is on their radar. And I've seen further that I've seen some chatter that if they did that, a couple of the teams they would be interested in would be the Predators and the Canes, for obvious reasons being, you know, Bristol kind of splits the distance between Raleigh and Nashville, and, you know, that's would be good and kind of distance-wise, geographically, but also kind of funny enough, when you put the abbreviations, it would be NAS versus CAR, so NASCAR. And, you know, as a Canes fan, I hope that it happens, but the more I think about it, I really don't see it, because when they did the college football, it made sense. You're near Knoxville, you're near Blacksburg. When they did baseball, maybe a little less sense, but you're in the Braves market, and you're not that far from Virginia, which is the Reds market. But being from the area, there is very little hockey interest around here. So it's, pretty much all going to have to be fans traveling in, I think, mostly. And even if you match the attendance to the Stadium Series in Carter Finley a couple years ago, that's like 40% of what Bristol holds. So I just don't, to be honest, I don't see it. You know, I hope it happens and pans out, but I have a lot of pause, and I would love to hear your thoughts on that. So anyway, thanks for what you do. Bye.
No, I appreciate the call on that. I have seen a similar sentiment about doing an outdoor hockey game at Bristol. I've also seen the sentiment of doing an outdoor hockey game at Bank of America Stadium. And the Hurricanes could, instead of doing it at Carter Finley Stadium, doing it at Bank of America Stadium. I get the idea.
I like the NASCAR. That made me laugh.
Yeah, I would. That's instant purchase of
I
merch.
love that.
Instant
it's
purchase.
great. It's built-in marketing right there.
And if you give me, like, you know, a comfort colors, like a heavyweight black tee with the classic NASCAR stylings, like an overdone car with NASCAR, like, I would buy that in a heartbeat. I even buy a hat. Okay. So all of that makes a lot of sense. So we go back to the conversation we had with Tom Dundon around 2023 when the Stadium Series was happening at Carter Finley Stadium. And, you know, it's like all-star games. It's not, he's like, no, I want to do more of this. And I don't see Dundon giving up the location for the Stadium Series at Carter Finley Stadium because it's money for him. Let's think about what he wants to do with the area, as we talked about with Luke DeCock earlier. He wants to make that area a place to make money. You're not going to take that show somewhere else so that somebody else can make money.
Right.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Visually, it would look amazing to play a hockey game at Bristol. But that's all you're really doing. It's the spectacle of it. If you actually go to these, this is always my thing with these kinds of events. Like, I did not go to Carter Finley Stadium for the Stadium Series to watch a hockey game. It wasn't my first Stadium Series either. I had gone to the Rangers and the Devils up in New York at Yankee Stadium back in like 2014 when the Super Bowl was up there. And we did Radio Row. And I dragged Adam's ass out to Yankee Stadium. Like, let's go check this out. It was cold. And we were up in like the upper right field corner. It is not good sightlines for a hockey game. Not the point.
Yeah.
I watched the hockey game in Yankee Stadium, right? So, and the point of the acoustics too, that's where I do draw a line with certain concerts.
Yeah.
Because like I saw Metallica at Ford Field. The acoustics were awful because of the setup of the building, right? So I could see where the concert in that situation not going to make sense. But bottom line, if you're asking about the potential of something like that happening, I don't see it, mainly because of what we just laid out with Tom Dundon, real estate, and wanting to control the money. That ultimately is what matters. All right, let's go to a 919.
Hey, OG. How much does it hurt our chances of getting an MLB team now that Dundon is reportedly going to buy the Trailblazers? Thanks. Bye.
Hopefully we answered that question in the conversation with Luke. I think it actually helps because you have to understand that Dundon is part of an ownership group. This is not him stretching his money out solely. It's about an ownership group, a front-facing person. And if you've been vetted by the NHL, you've been vetted by the NBA, well, it's going to make it easier to be vetted by Major League Baseball. So that's what I would say to that. Let's go to 252.
Joe and Joe. I'm calling. I am so sick and tired of the local media, especially your ex-employees sucking Bill Belichick's dick. He didn't win a damn thing when he didn't have Tom Brady. They act like he's the greatest thing since grits. Everything he does, they are tracking every movement any time of the day. It's just sickening. And I think it's time that we stop playing up to Bill Belichick. Look forward to seeing y'all at the podcast. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Okay. Let me just say this right off the bat, because I get it. I do. I get it. However, I'm going to compare this a little bit to like the Zion Williamson situation.
Okay.
Where there were a lot of people like complaining about all the coverage that a Zion Williamson would get.
Sure.
But then it's like, this is what if people didn't want this, they wouldn't be doing it. Like if they were not like, and I don't mean just like whoever, I mean any outlet, like and national outlets as well have covered various aspects of it. People are paying attention to it because of who it is. And that's just what it is. Like if people didn't want to read it, then they wouldn't be doing this. If everyone stopped reading the stories or clicking on or watching the videos, no coverage would happen of it. But that's not happening. Ergo.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like the Dallas Cowboys stuff. It's like people complain about ESPN constantly talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Of that, yeah. And yet they clearly have research that shows that people engage with the things about the Dallas Cowboys.
I also know plenty of state fans and other fan bases, which I get it. I would be the same way. I respect the pettiness that will like dive into some of these stories or like Schadenfreude. They're enjoying some of the disaster of it all. Like I get it. So there's that aspect too that contributes, I think.
I get the caller's point.
Yes.
I get the caller's point. Yes. I like how he eloquently put it. I had flashbacks to taking calls back in the early days and somebody calling us Carolina tip suckers.
I remember that.
I have that soundbite because I finally found the thumb drive. So I actually have some of that stuff still.
Oh, nice.
So I have that. I
remember that. That was great.
But are they filleting Bill Belichick? Or are they fascinated by what's happening?
I think it's more the latter. Yeah.
That's where I'm at. I'm fascinated by what's going on in Chapel Hill because, I mean, come on, it's Bill fucking Belichick in Chapel Hill. Like, how could you not be fascinated by that?
I'm not fascinated by it because I've seen this movie with different stars over the years.
Yeah,
so I'm just
you're in a different boat. You're in a different boat. So I have not heard the filleting, so I cannot speak to it.
Let's put a little respect on Bill Belichick's name too. Like, come on. I know he didn't win anything without Tom Brady, so to speak, but I think there's plenty to point to in Belichick's NFL career that shows he knew what he was doing a little bit.
I think so.
Doesn't mean he's going to know what he's doing in college.
It helps to have Tom Brady. All right, let's go to a 919.
Hey guys, this is Matt Fuquay. Follow up, and there's been the discussion in the past about how it's hard to find older things on the internet sometimes, even if it was widely reported at the News Observer or whatever other media entity. After a certain number of years, things have just been scrubbed or they're incredibly difficult to find. And it reminded me when listening to the caller talk about NC State's football spending in today's podcast that in the year 2000, when Chuck Amato was hired, and Norm Chow and Bud Green and the other staff members were hired, NC State was the first school across the entire country, to spend over $1 million
on its staff, not including the head coach's salary. And so I've always had a hard time finding this information to support that claim. I did actually, upon Googling it, did find a reposting of an old News and Record article about this from January of 2000. But I know this to be the case just because I remember these things and I kept up at the time, and it's absolutely true. In 2000, NC State was the first school to ever pay more than $1 million total for its football assistant staff. So, anyways, I think it's an interesting statistic, interesting given the topic of NC State football spending, and just more or less just thinking about where we are today as far as football staff spending, where there's probably 50 coaches that are assistants across the country that make over $1 million now. One coach making over $1 million. So, anyways, love the show, guys. Stay gorgeous. Stay handsome. Peace.
Yeah, college football has changed a lot in the last 25 years, obviously. There was a time where NC State, yes, did have the country's first $1 million staff. I remember that was being a big deal.
Makes sense.
You also have the Murphy Center, which at the time was a football palace.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, as we talked about with Luke earlier, you got the Butch Zone and things like that, which then surpassed that.
But it was always a big controversy. Like, where's yours?
Right.
People asking Carolina, like, you don't have that.
You had to have an indoor football facility. That was always a big thing with NC State, right?
It was a big deal when Duke got one, yeah.
Before NC State with the Yo Football Center and stuff like that. And then things evolve over time. Like in the SEC, it became, well, who was the first strength and conditioning coach who was making over $1 million? Like that kind of stuff. And I remember it was an Alabama, Georgia strength and conditioning coach. One was poached, and that was like a big deal in the SEC. All that stuff seems kind of quaint now because
I was going to say it, doesn't it? Yeah.
The money now goes to the players, which I think is perfectly fine. You had never forget.
But also, it's quaint to think of an assistant making $1 million as a big deal.
You also have to remember that we got here because the television money was flowing in, and they had to spend the money because it wasn't going to the players. All right.
Yeah.
Well, last one.
Hey guys, Jack from Raleigh, big fan. Normally, at this point in the year, I'm throwing all of my eggs into the NC State football basket to determine my happiness, right? A little delusional. But this is the first summer in a long time where, I'm not going to say I've checked out, but I'm so excited about the other North Carolina sports teams I root for. Look, the Hornets won Summer League. Nothing's going to change drastically, but it's exciting to see a group maybe start to mesh, some new faces. Will Wade, I'm all in for the reckoning. When's the last time a State fan was getting excited about basketball season before football season? Super exciting time. And the Hurricanes, right? Like, it's been so exciting the last couple of years to get used to the playoffs, to get excited about the season because we know they're going to be fun to watch. And then lastly, like the Panthers, man, we've seen some bad stuff the last couple of years. But I'm optimistic about Bryce. I think a lot of North Carolina sports teams, at least I'm a fan of, are trending in the right direction, and that's exciting. So I'm really pumped to put all of my happiness into multiple baskets this year and see how it plays out. Thanks, guys.
That's healthy. That's growth.
It is nice. It's nice to hear that, even if, I don't know. Every time someone's like, oh, the Panthers, are you excited? I'm like, I'm terrified.
Well, you're always terrified. It's funny when we were talking about the Panthers. Did you see the tier list come out, the QB tier list?
Mm-hmm. We talked about that on the podcast.
Oh, you did?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Bryce Young was put as a tier 3 quarterback.
I think it's fair.
Which reads, a tier 3 quarterback is a legitimate starter, but needs a heavier running game and or defensive components to win.
Well, certainly not the latter.
Well, that really is the thing. A lower
one.
volume drop back passing offense results suits him best, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that's the key phrase. Legitimate starter needs a defensive component. Tying it back to things. And that really, that's where, if I'm a Panthers fan, I'm a little wary of getting too caught up because do you trust Bryce Young and what they have in terms of offense to be able to win shootouts? I don't know. You're going to have to stop somebody. And that's the big question for the Panthers.
Right, from a win-loss perspective.
But if I'm ranking these things by optimism.
I just want to see him keep balling, really.
If I would have to rank things by like what you expect
certainly not the Panthers.
Panthers would probably rank on the lowest.
Well, Panthers and Hornets, I think, are similar because like there maybe are some things that you would like to be that will be encouraging, but that's more for like the future, not for this year future.
You're hype about the Hurricanes, obviously. There's optimism if you're a State fan for the basketball team. I think there's a bit
Sure.
of you're probably looking at a Dave Doran special in terms of football. Nobody's talking about them, so they'll have a decent season. There's clearly people are very happy with the direction of John Shire and things like that.
Of course.
Basketball for Carolina is a little bit on a dicier
Sure.
side of things. And of course, as we discussed throughout the show today,
I think
when it
that's an
comes to
interesting wrinkle with Belichick here as well.
right. And that adds to the Belichick storyline and whether or not, yet again, an investment in football results in more of the same. And then all those eyes turn back to basketball and say, hey, yeah, I forgot our first love is this. So that's that. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up. Big thanks to everybody who watched today. If you haven't done it yet, go to oviesandgiglio.com to fill out the survey, the listener survey. Again, that's oviesandgiglio.com. There's a link there to take the survey. We want your feedback, positive, negative, constructive criticism. That's what the survey is for. Chances are you're taking the survey because you like the show, but we want to make sure you keep liking the show. So that's why we have things like the listener survey. So go to oviesandgiglio.com. Also, reminder with the YouTube, we've got the membership channel that just launched this week. Go check that out. We'll get back into the mailbag next week, along with OG Business. That'll be on the YouTube membership page. And of course, go to ogtrianglemediashop.com. ogtrianglemediashop.com. Our summer pop-up is going on, although we got a couple of weeks left before we shut that down and everything goes back into the Disney vault, never to be seen again until we need to make more money. So go to ogtrianglemediashop.com. We will see y'all next week.